Hello everyone. So in amphibian experiments, we are talking about amphibian graphs. Now just to remind you that these graphs, they are usually asked in spotting, where you need to identify the graph and answer the question asked. Now you since already know about different instruments, nerve muscle preparation, action potential, simple muscle curl, simple muscle twitch, etc. things. Today we are going to learn three new different things. First one is effect of two successive stimuli, second one is genesis of tetanus, and third one is velocity of nerve impulse. So the first one is effects of two successive stimuli on skeletal muscle contraction. When two successive stimuli are paired, the response of the muscle to the paired stimuli depends on the timing and strength of the second stimulus. Or in other words, a second successive stimulus either has no effect or can produce varying effects depending on the strength of the stimulus and the temporal point at which the stimulus is applied in relation to the effect of the first stimulus. Now before going further, we need to understand few terms. The first is absolute refractory period. First half of the latent period, during which a second stimulus does not produce any response, no matter how strong the stimulus is and for what duration the application of the stimulus is. So what is absolute refractory period? Means in that particular period a second stimulus can have no effect, complete no effect. Then relative refractory period, which is second half of the latent period, during which a second stimulus of greater strength may evoke a response. So in relative refractory period, a second stimulus may produce a response, while in absolute refractory period, no response. Then other term is the beneficial effect. When a muscle is stimulated by two successive stimuli, the magnitude of the contraction of the second stimulus is greater than the first. This occurs because the first stimulus becomes beneficial for the second one. In short, we get increased height of contraction after applying the second stimulus because the first one became beneficial for the second one. Got it? Now there are different causes behind this thing. The main one is calcium ions. Calcium ions released from the terminal systems during muscle contraction are pumped back during relaxation. So when the second stimulus falls in the relaxation period of the first one, some amount of calcium is still left in the sarcoplasm due to incomplete relaxation of the first one, which ultimately increases the calcium concentration available for the second stimulus, and therefore we get increased height of contraction after applying second stimulus. Then the other reason is increase in the temperature of the muscle and decrease in the viscosity of the muscle. Now summation. Summation means increase in the activity of a tissue produced by multiple stimulation as compared with the effect of a single stimulus. Summation is a property shown both by muscular and by nervous tissue, but it is most easily demonstrated by the muscle. Now two forms of summation by muscle can be recognized. One is summation of stimuli and the second one is summation of contraction. Summation of stimuli refers to the application of multiple subthreshold stimuli to produce muscular response, while summation of contraction refers to an increase in actual magnitude of contraction as a result of multiple stimulation. So in short, what is summation? It means increase in the activity of tissue produced by multiple stimulation compared to a single stimulus. Means when multiple stimulation are applied, there is increase in the activity of a tissue. Then there are few other things to note down. One is when multiple subminimal stimuli are applied, they get summated and response is obtained. But it is not possible to have summation of maximal stimuli, as all motor units have already been activated by a single maximal stimuli. Now method. When two successive stimuli are paired and applied to the muscle, the magnitude of contraction changes depending on the timing of the second stimulus. This is recorded by separating the contact arms of the kymograph and recording the contractions at different angles between them. About requirements, they are same as for simple muscle twitch, which are like kymograph, muscle trough, short circulating key, tap key, Ringer's solution, electrodes, tuning fork, etc., etc., etc. Now, this is a graph of simple muscle twitch or simple muscle curve. You already know about it, but still this is just a little reminder. So you can see here a point of stimulus, then a latent period, which is a period of latency between the point of application of stimulus and onset of contraction. Then there is a contraction period, and then there is a relaxation period, followed by few physiological curve. So these are all the basic things which you must know. So now the first graph of this practical. So you can see two different graphs. The left one is when the second stimulus is applied during first half of latent period, and the right side of the graph is when the stimulus is applied during second half of the latent period. So now the left side of the graph, let's talk about it. So you can see here figure 3.3a and figure 3.3b. So figure 3.3a is just normal SMC, normal simple muscle curve or simple muscle twitch. This is just here for the comparison. Okay, then now figure 3.3b, see here S1 and S2. So S1 is the first stimulus and S2 is second stimulus. So here S2, the second stimulus, when we give second stimulus during first half of the latent period of the first contraction, what happens? Read it. When the second stimulus falls in the first half of the latent period of the first contraction, it does not evoke any response as it falls in the absolute refractory period of the stimulus. We already talked about it, that any stimulus which falls in the absolute refractory period, it will not evoke any kind of response. Got it? So now you in the graph, the left graph, just compare the height of contraction of the figure 3.3a and figure 3.3b is the same. There is no change. Reason is because the second stimulus fell during the first half of the latent period, which is absolute refractory period of the first stimulus. So we won't get any response. Got it? Now the right side graph, figure 3.3c. Even in this graph, see, you can see the SMT, simple muscle curve or simple muscle twitch. This is just for the reference or for the comparison. And then you can see S1 and S2. So S2 is second stimulus. Here we applied second stimulus during second half of the latent period of the first stimulus. What we get? Read it. When the second stimulus falls in the second half of the latent period, only a single curve is obtained but with increased height. This is due to summation of stimuli falling in the relative refractory period. So here the second stimuli falls in the relative refractory period of the first stimuli or of the first contraction. So we will get a response. And what will be the response? The response will be increased height of contraction, which you can clearly see. Compare the graph, compare the SMT with the second stimulus thing. We will see increased height of contraction because of summation of stimuli. So in short, when the second stimulus falls in the first half of the latent period, it won't evoke any further response. So there will be no increased height of contraction. But when the second stimulus falls in the second half of latent period or in the relative refractory period, there will be response and there will be summation of stimuli. So we will get increased height of contraction, which you can clearly see. Now the next graph, which shows effect of two successive stimuli on muscle contraction when the second stimulus is given during contraction period of the first stimulus. So here see the graph. Again on the left side you can see it's a simple muscle twitch, or SMC, simple muscle curve. Again, this is just for the comparison. On the right side you can see S1 and S2. So S2, second stimulus, is given during contraction period or during contraction of the first stimulus. What happens then? Read it. When the second stimulus falls during contraction period of the first stimulus, only a single curve is obtained but with increased height. This is due to summation of contractions. This is due to summations. Remember, what is summation? Summation means increase in the activity of a tissue produced by multiple stimulation compared with the effect of single stimuli. So here you can see the effect of multiple stimuli, and clearly see the graph again and see the right side, there is a increased height of contraction. Now the next graph, which shows effect of two successive stimuli on muscle contraction when the second stimulus is given during relaxation period of the first stimulus. So here we give second stimulus during relaxation period of the first stimuli. What happens then? Read it. When the second stimulus falls in the relaxation period of the first stimulus, the relaxation is arrested and the second contraction occurs. The height of the second contraction is more than the first one because of the beneficial effect. So here in the graph you can see there is incomplete relaxation of the first stimuli, right? So the relaxation is arrested and immediately we get the contraction, but it will be more, there will be increased height of contraction after the second stimulus because of the beneficial effect. What is beneficial effect? Second stimulus get benefited by the changes produced in the muscle due to first stimuli is beneficial effect, and we can clearly see it here. Okay, now the next graph, which shows effect of two successive stimuli on muscle contraction when the second stimulus is given after relaxation of the first stimuli. Okay, immediately after relaxation, what happens? Read it. When the second stimulus falls immediately after relaxation of the first contraction, a second twitch is recorded which is of higher magnitude than the first one. This is also due to beneficial effect. So you can see it here in the graph. When you give the second stimulus immediately after the relaxation period of the first one, you see increased height of contraction. Can you see it? Yes. And this is also due to beneficial effect. The main reason is calcium, because some calcium released in the sarcoplasm during first stimuli are still available in addition to those released by the second stimuli. So that was all about effect of two successive stimuli on muscle contraction. Now we will see second part of this practical, which is genesis of tetanus. So what is tetanus? Tetanus refers to a state of sustained tonic contraction of the muscle without relaxation due to rapidly repeated stimulation. Or in other words, tetanus is a fusion of contractions resulting from multiple successive stimuli followed by sustained contraction when stimulated at high frequency. When the rate of stimulation increases, tetanus ensues. When the muscle is stimulated below the tetanizing frequency, incomplete tetanus or clonus occurs. So basically, what is tetanus? It means continue contraction of the muscle without relaxation, only contraction, mostly due to rapidly repeated stimulation. Okay, now we will see this genesis of tetanus in four different parts, which is trepe or staircase phenomenon when we give 5 stimuli per second, then clonus when we give 10 to 20 stimuli per second, then incomplete tetanus when we give 30 stimuli per second, and lastly tetanus when we give 40 stimuli per second. So see the graph. Here you can see all four things. First, A, which is trepe or staircase phenomenon. It happens when we give low frequency of stimulation. So here you can still see relaxation. Then B is clonus, little higher stimulation, higher frequency of stimulation. Here you can see relaxation, but it's not complete. Then C is incomplete tetanus, where you can hardly see any relaxation. And finally D, which is complete tetanus, where you cannot see any relaxation at all. No relaxation, only sustained contraction of muscle. So this graph, it shows exclusively trepe or staircase phenomenon. First of all, trepe is a German word which means staircase. So it is the progressive increase in the force of contraction when a muscle is contracted repeatedly. This phenomenon is obtained at low frequency of stimulation, like around 5 stimuli per second. And this occurs mainly due to beneficial effect, which is accumulation of calcium in the sarcoplasm due to application of repeated stimuli. And successive stimuli fall during the relaxation period of the previous stimuli. So what will happen? There will be gradually increased height of contraction, which you can see here. Trepe is also seen in the cardiac muscles. However, the cardiac muscle cannot be tetanized because of a long refractory period, which you will see later. Now, this graph shows clonus. What is clonus? With repeated maximal stimulation, if stimulation is such that successive stimuli falls during the mid-relaxation phase of the previous stimulus, the muscle relaxes but not completely. Such response is known as clonus. Again, successive stimuli falls during the mid-relaxation phase of the previous stimulation. Clonus is obtained when stimulus rate is around 10 to 20 per second, and it is due to summation of stimuli or due to summation of contractions. It is a state of partial tetanus observed in experimental conditions. That's why it is called experimental clonus, and it should not be confused with clinical clonus. For example, ankle clonus, which is seen in upper motor neuron type of paralysis. Finally, this graph is showing tetanus. So in simple words, we can say tetanus is a state of sustained contraction, or we can say complete tetanus is the phenomenon of sustained state of contraction at a very high frequency of stimulation, around 40 stimuli per second. This is due to summation of contractions, ultimately producing fusion of contractions. So there is no relaxation. The muscle remains in a state of tonic contraction without relaxation. Okay, so what is complete tetanus? When there is no relaxation between stimuli. And what is incomplete tetanus or clonus? There are periods of incomplete relaxation between the summated stimuli. Now some theory part about tetanus. So tetanus occurs when rapid and repeated stimulation leads the stimuli to fall during the contraction phase, so that the contractile processes are repeatedly activated and the muscle does not get time to relax. So we already talked about it. The muscles of our body that are involved in the maintenance of posture exhibit tetanic contraction. An erect posture is maintained due to sustained contraction of the anti-gravity muscles. Tetanic contraction of the muscle is also observed during an isometric exercise. Tetanus can be seen pathologically due to infection by Clostridium tetani. Tetanus usually occurs following an injury like cut or wound through which the bacteria enter the body. The tetanus toxin released by the bacteria stimulates the motor neurons repeatedly at a high frequency and results in tetanus. The facial muscles are commonly affected, and in severe cases, all the skeletal muscles of the body may get affected. This disease can be prevented by prior immunization with the tetanus vaccine or receiving the vaccine within 12 hours of injury. And then tetany. So there is a difference between tetanus and tetany. We already talked about tetanus. So what is tetany? Tetany occurs due to decrease in ionized calcium causing neuromuscular hyperexcitability, which leads to extensive spasm of skeletal muscles. So that was all about genesis of tetanus. Now we see the last and final part of this practical, which is velocity of nerve impulse in Frogs cytic nerve. So first of all, what is impulse? Impulse is an electrochemical change traveling on the cell membrane, which is self-propagatory in nature. The speed at which the impulse travels through a biological membrane like that of a nerve depends on various factors. Velocity of conduction is determined by dividing the distance between the 2 points of stimuli with the difference in the latent period of both the recordings. So we can say velocity of the nerve impulse is equal to L upon T, where L is equal to length of the nerve between the electrodes and T is interval between the beginnings of two contractions. So here is the graph which shows velocity of nerve impulse in frog cytic nerve. So here we can see two different curves, A and B. A is simple muscle curve following stimulation of the nerve close to the muscle, and B is simple muscle curve following stimulation of the nerve close to vertebra. So A is when we stimulate the nerve close to the muscle, and B is when we stimulate the nerve close to the vertebra. And you can see here they both have different latent period. PS is of course point of stimulation, and C downwards AL1. AL1 is latent period of the curve A, and AL2 is latent period of the curve B. So now the procedure regarding how conduction velocity is calculated. So one pair of electrodes is placed on the nerve at a point close to the muscle, and the other pair of electrodes is placed on the nerve close to the vertebra. Then the drum is rotated at the fastest speed, which is 640 mm per second, using the reversing key, and the nerve is stimulated at its muscle end, and then SMT is taken, which is marked as A, curve A. Then keeping the same baseline without changing the point of stimulus or strength of stimulus, the nerve is stimulated again at its vertebral end, and then another SMT or simple muscle twitch is taken, which is marked as curve B. Then time tracing is done with the help of tuning fork, and then the difference between the latent periods of two SMT or simple muscle twitch is noted. This represents the time taken by the impulse to travel from one point to another. Then the distance is measured between the central points of two pairs of electrodes. And finally, the conduction velocity of the nerve is calculated by distance traveled in centimeter upon time taken by nerve impulse from one point to another in second. So finally it will be calculated as meter per second or centimeter per second, but it's always expressed in meter per second. Then observation. So observe the difference in the latent period of two recordings and calculate the conduction velocity from the given recordings. The normal value of the conduction velocity of the cytic nerve of the frog is 40 to 60 meter per second. Now some theory part. The conduction velocity of a nerve is determined mainly by the fiber diameter and the degree of myelination of the nerve. As the fiber diameter increases, the velocity of conduction increases. The velocity of conduction is higher in myelinated fibers than in unmyelinated fibers. Other factors which affect conduction velocity are temperature, hypoxia, and proximity of resting membrane potential to the threshold. The decrease in conduction velocity indicates injury to the nerve or some defect in the nerve. Now, according to Erlanger and Gasser classification, the nerve fibers are divided into A, B, and C groups. A group nerve fibers are further divided into alpha, beta, gamma and delta fibers. Now the function of these different fibers is already given in your journal, so you can go through it. So that's all about effect of two successive stimuli, genesis of tetanus and velocity of nerve impulse. Thank you very much.